Imagine watching a traveler in a foreign country who desperately needs directions. They don't speak the local language, so instead of using a translation app or pointing at a map, they just start shouting louder in their native tongue. It doesn't clarify anything, it just causes confusion. This illustrates the approach the modern Protestant and Adventist church often takes with a secular post-Christian world. We have an urgent message to share, but we are speaking in a language our listeners no longer comprehend. We have defaulted to institutional evangelism. This is the expectation that someone entirely outside our culture must walk into our physical buildings, sit in our pews, and decode our insider jargon just to participate. By refusing to learn the cultural vocabulary of the secular world, the church has built a self-imposed language barrier. We isolate ourselves from the exact people we intend to reach. To see where this breakdown happens, look at this spectrum diagram, which illustrates the X to 10 fallacy. It tracks a person's spiritual journey, ranging from a 1, someone entirely hostile to religion, all the way to a 10, representing a fully baptized, committed church member. For decades, institutional leadership has defined success strictly as reaching a 10. Anything less than dragging a person completely across that specific finish line is recorded as a total failure. This rigid all-or-nothing requirement contradicts the historical reality of the Apostle Paul, the primary architect of the early Christian church. Our modern obsession with manufacturing a highly specific institutional subculture runs counter to the very methods Paul used to build a global movement. Paul's core strategy was extreme adaptation. He operated as a cultural chameleon, altering his presentation to match his audience's background. When Paul spoke to an audience of Jews in Pisidian Antioch, he anchored his entire message in the Torah. He recounted Israel and history and quoted the prophets, relying on a text they already deeply revered. But his approach shifted when he arrived in Athens, a hub of Greek philosophy. In Acts 17, Paul stands before a highly educated pagan audience at the Areopagus. He abandons the Torah. He doesn't quote a single Hebrew prophet. Instead, he quotes pagan Greek poets and points to a local Athenian altar dedicated to an unknown god. Paul's true genius lay in his flexibility. He didn't rigidly adhere to religious scripts. He found cultural doorways, translating his message into the existing philosophical framework of his listeners so they could truly comprehend it. This inclusive theology faced a severe sociological test in the city of Antioch. As recorded in Galatians chapter 2, the Apostle Peter was freely eating meals with non-Jewish Gentile converts. That fellowship shattered with the sudden arrival of strict institutional Jewish believers from the church's headquarters in Jerusalem. Fearing their judgment, Peter quietly withdrew from the Gentile tables. The impact of that action was immediate. Peter created an exclusive insiders table and an outsiders table, dividing the room based entirely on cultural conformity. Paul recognized the danger and publicly rebuked Peter. He argued that access to God requires the faithfulness of Jesus, not strict obedience to an insider's behavioral checklist. Modern Protestant and Adventist subcultures often replicate Peter's mistake. We subtly demand dietary, political, or behavioral conformity before extending true belonging, erecting the exact walls Paul fought to tear down. Whenever the church demands cultural assimilation as a prerequisite for acceptance, it betrays the core design of the gospel. Reaching post-Christian demographics, like Generation Z, requires the church to abandon its institutional posture. We have to adopt a proclamational mindset, going to where people are rather than waiting for them to come to us. This means redefining success. On our 1 to 10 spectrum, victory is any positive movement. If being a good neighbor helps someone hostile, a 1, move to a 3, open to the idea of God, you have achieved a massive gospel victory. Translating the message to align with modern values of authenticity tears down the artificial walls of that 10-point funnel. It allows genuine, meaningful connection to finally occur. Operating the church as an exclusive club or a narrowly defined subculture starves it of the diversity it needs to survive. The early church, as Paul envisioned and built it, was designed to be a radically inclusive, trans-ethnic, and transcultural family. We have to stop waiting for the secular world to learn our insider language. It is time to learn theirs, step into their world, and set the table for everyone.